I'm Rob.
I'm John.
And this is the Mint One podcast,
where we talk all things NFTs and the rise of blockchain gaming.
So this week, we have another special guest. Who is it, John?
We do indeed. It is Michael Sanders, the Chief Storyteller at Horizon Blockchain Games.
Okay, hello Michael. Thank you very much for joining us. We did actually meet just a few weeks ago for the first time in person at Gamescom. I gave you a little cuddle in the booth down in the B2B section. How did you find it?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was amazing meeting you in person finally, and Gamescom was wonderful. We had two presences there, so we had a booth for Sequence in the B2B area and a booth for Skyweaver in the gamer consumer area, and both went really well. I was entirely at the Sequence booth, but just, yeah, man, made like so many incredible contacts. It was really wonderful hanging out with people from my team as well. You know, some who I was meeting for the first time, others who I've worked with for 4 years, but haven't seen them as much in person as of late. So yeah, overall, it was really wonderful.
Yeah, it was amazing. The Skyweaver booth I went to on the last day and had a chat with the team, and they had some great anecdotes about how it was going. Like some, I'm sure you've heard it already, but there was like a 6-year-old girl that was there with her mum and her nan, and she lost her game against the bots by 1 HP, and she was like refusing to leave the booth. She wanted to play again. So her mum and grandma had to download the app. It's just great stuff that, you know, that people are finally playing blockchain games, even if they have no idea there's blockchain behind it, which is ideal, really.
Oh, that's wonderful. I had not heard that story, but it sounds like a new player part of our ecosystem.
Oh, exactly.
You told me that.
Inducting them young, yeah. You got to be careful the mainstream media doesn't pick that up. NFT game scalping children or something, some crazy headline.
No, I mean, I'd say like NFT gaming experience is more wonderful for children.
Yeah, well, it should do. At least they'll come away with something. I don't have anything from my thousands of hours of childhood gaming.
Yeah, me neither, man. Well, I mean, other than the memories and the good times.
Yeah, well, there is that, but I can't sell that, so it's less important. Okay, so for people that don't know you, you are one of the co-founders and chief storyteller at Horizon Blockchain Games. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, my first question is, what on earth does chief storyteller entail?
Tell stories, man.
Well, now I feel stupid.
Yeah, no, you're not stupid. It's it's really about inviting people into our story and into our journey. So in traditional terms, like I lead up the marketing division of our company, also community. I'm also heavily involved in investor relations and some business development and recruiting too, and growing our team. But yeah, like at a high level, it's like inviting gamers into our journey and our story, inviting builders into our journey and our story, and really inviting this next generation of users into Web3.
When it comes to inviting this next generation of users into Web3, there's several different products, let's say, that you have that help to facilitate that. Of course, you've got the Sequence developer platform, you've got Sequence Wallet, and of course you also have Skyweaver, your really, really cool TCG that, you know, me and Rob have raved about in the past. And I think one kind of throughput through all of those products you have is that kind of when I think about Horizon Blockchain Games, I think, you know, the building for the future, you know, both in terms of, you know, a UI UX sense and on the technical side. You seem very, very kind of forward thinking, very ahead of the curve, so to speak. So kind of on that point, you've got those 3 products in the pipeline at the moment. What are your plans for the rest of this year? Are you planning to develop those further? Do you have anything else in the pipeline? What's going on at Horizon Blockchain Games right now? Yeah,
so we recently closed the Series A, which I'm not yet at liberty to disclose. We'll announce that in early October. And yeah, I mean, if this podcast is coming out after that, I could talk about it. I'm not sure.
Should be out at the end of this week.
Yeah,
okay.
So no.
We'll have to save that one. But it's really focused on growing our products and scaling operations. So on the Skyweaver side of things, right? Like, I think it was Robert in his article calling Skyweaver the best blockchain game. And it's a tremendous accolade and something we really want to live up to. And ultimately, we want to create the greatest trading card game of all time, amongst the ranks of Magic the Gathering and Pokemon. And so really like focused on, there's a new version of the economy coming out, new added a design to the Conquest game mode. There's new content, new cards, just like to make the game more engaging and richer. And so, yeah, focusing on Skyweaver there, and then really focusing on growing Sequence. So, John, as you mentioned, Sequence is this all-in-one developer platform and smart wallet to make building Web3 games and applications easy. So we're focused on bringing more builders onto the platform. We already have about 40 who have either fully integrated or in the process of integrating, and then a pipeline in the hundreds, and just bringing more people in via marketing, business development and partnerships, community initiatives, and better support for the products as well. And then we actually, this fall, will be launching Nifty Swap, which is an SFT marketplace that allows you to instantly buy and sell SFTs. That stands for semi-fungible tokens, for anyone that doesn't know, largely powered by the ERC 1155 token standard, which we co-authored in 2018. So Nifty Swap, like if you think of kind of OpenSea as the premier destination for NFTs, Nifty Swap is poised to become the premier marketplace for trading SFTs, and semi-fungible tokens are particularly well suited for video game items, in addition to like metaverse goods, where or in digital fashion, where it makes more sense to have multiple copies of a given item rather than having it be a unique one of one.
That's interesting. So can you perhaps clear up a little bit? Can you give me a use case of an SFT over an NFT? Because what people might think, and by people I also mean me, is if there were going to be 10,000 an item that could, say there was 10,000 cards in Skyweaver, for just an example, this would presumably, instead of having 10,000 of that NFT, so you would have a number of 10,000, so maybe the third mint of 10,000. This is a different approach to that. So what's the benefit of using this over more NFTs,
Yeah, so to answer the question very directly, it enables healthier markets, liquidity, right, and price discovery. And to kind of dive into that, so if you think about Skyweaver cards, for example, right, or for anyone who doesn't know what Skyweaver is, it's a trading card game akin to, Pokemon or Magic the Gathering. And in Skyweaver, or like imagine a Pikachu card, right? Like in Skyweaver, I'll use the fungi card as an example. A silver fungi should be exchangeable with any other silver fungi because they have the same mechanics, the same abilities, etc., the same artwork. So that it doesn't actually make sense to have it as an ERC 721 or a non-fungible token, because then the supply of each of those is one of one. Like there's only one of each of those cards. And if you try to put it up on a market, for example, each one could be priced differently. And you're basically putting up like an ask order for the value of that card. Whereas when you use ERC 1155, the SFT standard, which is what Skyweaver uses, the Sandbox also uses it, Alluvium, Parallel, a number of other games. And I think most video game items will be semi-fungible tokens in the future, other than items that need to truly be one of one unique. But if you think of like the Skyweaver cards, for example, right, like in the game, there's the Skyweaver market, which is actually powered by the Nifty Swap protocol, which enables there to be liquidity pools for each of the cards, right? So like in Skyweaver, you can have fungi, liquidity pools of fungi paired with USDC. And then anytime that a fungi is, purchased from that liquidity pool, that means more USDC is going in and then driving the price of those fungi's higher based on the supply and demand ratio, or right, X times Y equals K. Similar to like Uniswap, but for, video game items and SFTs. Whereas if you have an NFT card, and each one is unique, price discovery is very difficult because technically each and every one, there's only a supply of one.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I think I get I think I get what you're saying. So it's less relevant that you perhaps minted 10,000 of it because they are still non-fungible. It's almost like 10,000 one of ones.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. And presumably, I mean, I'm a long way from an economist, but presumably that would stabilize game economies a little bit more as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the higher the supply of items, right, then the more stable it'll be because the less impact one individual trade makes. Yeah. And then in that sense, right, like now users can instantly buy or sell their card because in a system like NiftySwap, there are these liquidity pools and they can see like, oh, that's the price I'll get if I sell it, or that's the price I have to pay if I buy it. Whereas, when you're using NFTs, typically you kind of have to like place a bid and then there's an approval and it can take time and it's just a little more friction.
Okay. Do you think games will still integrate NFTs as well? Do you see them coexisting?
Yeah. I definitely think they're SFTs aren't designed to replace NFTs by any means. Like they're two different. They're two different standards for different kinds of items, and I could imagine like, there could be scenarios in gaming like if you win a tournament, for example, maybe like a badge or a trophy gets minted, and that should be one of one. Like there should never be another one because that's only for that tournament. There's only that one gold trophy, right? It certainly applies to artwork, but I know you're like talking specifically about gaming, so I think there's like different use cases for why you might want a one-of-one game item, but I do think that for like the majority of game items, it makes more sense to use an SFT token.
Okay.
I mean, we've just kind of talked in a kind of roundabout way about Skyweaver, so let's dive right in. Of course, one of the biggest things happened to Skyweaver in the past couple of weeks is your first major expansion, Clash of Inventors, that dropped on July the 7th. Could you tell us about the kind of the experience of developing that, and also have you started working on a follow-up expansion yet?
Yes. So Clash of Inventors, I think it saw 50 new cards released, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a game dev, so like my experience of seeing it come to fruition is more on the periphery and then learning, like what do we need to communicate. But there's like different mechanics, like there's this new trait called Dash. I guess just in case anyone doesn't know, like Skyweaver is a free-to-play trading card game, and there were, prior to this expansion, I think there were 520 cards, and then we added like 50 new ones. And so, it's just like about adding more content to the game, adding different, it obviously affects the meta of the game, which players are really excited about because it suddenly changes everyone's strategy and like how they should be constructing their decks. And this new mechanic as well changes gameplay. So it's just like spicing up the game, hopefully making it more engaging, which is, that's the impact we've seen thus far. And then, yes, John, we are planning another expansion. I actually can't remember if we've announced it yet. So I'm not sure if I should say anything.
We don't want to ruin your Series A and your new expansion in one podcast. So.
No, people can know the Series A exists, but just not the details yet. I won't name it. We may have already disclosed it somewhere, but it's a new expansion. It's with another 50 cards. The team's really excited about it. I've seen like early designs. The artwork's insane. And and like tremendous kudos to like Coulter, our lead game designer, and then also Matt, and also like everyone. There's about 60 people that across our company, like probably 20-ish focused on Skyweaver. And like all of them deserve tremendous kudos for that. Yeah,
the artwork is superb. Just and I've seen a lot of the love you get on Twitter is people fawning over the artwork, which is great to see because a lot of effort goes into those things and sometimes it doesn't get the appreciation it deserves. So one thing I want to talk about with Skyweaver is something that we talked about at the booth at Gamescom. Now you mentioned rewarding players. That you're moving not so much to play to earn. It's never been a play to earn game, and I don't think you aspire to be play to earn, but a more merit based way of getting NFTs and for people to get more out of the game. Can you give any details on that? Yeah. So,
first and foremost, we have a game mode called Conquest. I'll take a step back. So it's free to play. You can start playing. totally for free. And you can actually win NFT or SFT rewards through free play. And we have 3 different grade types of cards. So there are base, silver, and gold. Now, base cards are non-blockchain, non-tradable items. But you can unlock all of these through free play. They give you access to the complete strategy of the game. And then we have ranked mode. So it's the weekly competitive leaderboards. The top ranking players each week mint silver versions of the cards into existence. And these are tradable SFTs. And just to avoid confusion as well, like a lot of people refer to SFTs as NFTs. It's kind of like the blanket term people call any Web3 collectible an NFT.
Yeah.
So these silver cards are tradable blockchain items cards. And then we have a higher tier of cards that are rare and cosmetically enhanced called gold cards. And you can win gold cards by playing in a game mode called Conquest. And so Conquest is a single elimination tournament style mode where you can win a card, where you, if you lose your first match, you're out, and you lose your stake, which is, it's $1.50 to enter, $1.50 USDC or 1 silver card to enter. And so if you lose that match, you're out. If you win a match, you win 1 silver tradable card. If you win 2 matches, you win 2 silver tradable cards. And if you win all 3 matches in a Conquest, then you win this 1 gold tradable card and 1 silver tradable card. So this has been one of the ways that we've really empowered players to, be able to play for free and actually win rewards in a skill-based manner that doesn't like hyperinflate an economy. And then, so we're now adding we're adding Conquest treasures into the game. So these will be, there's going to be a number of points. And the more points you level, like that you accumulate each week, and you accumulate points by completing matches, also based on the number of silver cards you have in your deck while playing a match, also based on the number of gold cards you have in your deck while playing Conquest matches. And also if you have these particular hero skins, these really cool cosmetics in your deck, you'll also accumulate points during Conquest for this. So the more points you accumulate during, I actually forget if it's weekly or monthly right now, but let's just say for conversation's sake, it's monthly. The more points you accumulate, well, then the more treasure you will unlock, which is actually USDC. To start. So there's like this treasure pool it's a portion of the entry fees that go into playing Conquest. So a portion of the $1.50 entry fees that people enter with goes into this treasure. And then as people accumulate points, they're actually unlocking that treasure and winning that USDC for themselves.
Okay. It's cool because although I don't love play to earn games per se, I don't like the premise of playing a game purely to earn. I do want to see more merit-based rewards for games. And I think personally, Token Gamer is particularly interested in esports because we think that Web3 esports is just such a perfect fit. Smart contracts can do a lot of the heavy lifting for things. So it's good to see that. And I did one of the only criticisms I had of Skyweaver was that I wanted more rewards for sinking hours into it. So yeah, that's great to hear.
Just on the Rob's conveniently brought up the esports point here. I mean, earlier today I was watching some esports. Esports are a big part of my life, and I think Skyweaver, being a TCG, is perfectly situated to find some success in that realm. So do you have any plans to flesh out a more structured competitive side to Skyweaver?
Yeah, totally. We actually just hired a community tournament specialist as well to help focus on the competitive scene, both to facilitate and enable like third parties who want to run their own tournaments. And in addition to having official Skyweaver endorsed or Skyweaver run tournaments as well to really, foster that competitive scene. Cause like you, John, we believe Skyweaver can be an amazing esport, and it's, it's kind of about fostering that and like growing it rather than just calling it an esport. You obviously have to have the community, you have to have the demand. So we're working on nurturing that. And I think, our community tournament specialist, his name's Eduardo. In the community, they better know him as Mephisto. And he was actually like one of the tournament organizers and like a longtime streamer of Skyweaver, streaming for like 8 hours per day, And then, now it's cool because he's like this passionate community member and content creator who's now part of our team at Horizon and helping lead that community initiative alongside like our other community managers like Marcelo and Ashavri. To answer your question, we're aiming in that direction.
Fantastic. Mephisto's a great guy. I think when I've streamed Skyweaver in the past, I've rated him a few times. Really, really nice guy. So if you want to go see someone play Skyweaver to a high level, then definitely go and check him out. But you touched on community there. A big part of Web3, but kind of more kind of society nowadays. A lot of brands online and offline, Web2, Web3, claim to make the community a core part of who they are and try to cater them as much as possible. Sometimes that's fluff, but for Horizon Blockchain Games, I get the impression that the community really is, a huge part of who you are and why you do what you do. I mean, with patch 100 coming up on September 22nd, you've got streamers involved in releasing some of the kind of a first look at some of the cards and the community tournaments that you've just mentioned there. So quite a general question, but what does the community mean to Horizon Blockchain Games, and why did you decide to go with such a kind of a community-focused approach to getting the word out there about Skyweaver?
Yeah, I mean, the community means pretty much everything to us, right? Because that's who we're building the game for. Without a community, you don't have a game, really. And we've taken that approach from the very beginning. I'm a big fan of a philosophy from Kevin Kelly who talked about 1,000 true fans. And it was just really about, nurturing deep relationships with, ideally, if you can get 1,000 people you have like really deep relationships with and really love what you're doing and you're really serving them, and providing them tons of value, then they'll be incredible ambassadors moving forward. And some of those 1,000 true fans, maybe they have 10 followers on Twitter, but then maybe others have podcasts and media outlets and others have like millions of followers on Twitter, right? Or wherever they are. So we've been just very focused on building like things that the community will really love, because for one, we want to provide value to the people who are early, and that a big way of doing that is actually expanding it to a much wider audience, bringing in more like energy and ideas and players, so that it becomes a richer ecosystem for everyone, right? And from the very beginning, like actually one of our, I think we may have been like 6 or 7 people. There were 5 co-founders. We had hired our director of product. I think the next hire might have been Marcelo, our community manager, who's now director of community. And he has like a deep background in community in gaming, like at GOG, also in like some really big AAA titles he was helping out with. So like fostering that has been essential to us since the beginning. And I remember like when we had 20 people on our Discord, and it's like, it started growing slowly, and then the snowball develops, and then it turns into an avalanche. And now we're at like 98,000 Discord members. And, but it's really about listening to them. And like, I think at Horizon, we listen to everything that our community says. It doesn't mean that we implement every suggestion, of course. Oftentimes too, people will have suggestions that aren't necessarily practical or maybe aren't actually the best solution, right? But we like listen 100% to all of the problems and issues that people are identifying. And then we go back and try to come up with the most impactful solutions. And obviously we like prioritize items that we prioritize what's like will have the highest impact and is the quickest to do. And so we're always, just always listening. And, and hopefully the community, I think they know we love them, and like that's what we're here for.
Yeah, I think there were so many things I wanted to comment on there. I probably can't keep them all in my head, which is actually a theme for our interview podcasts. So I think, firstly, I love the whole 1,000 True Fans. That's something that I've heard about in other industries that I've worked. I first heard about it in photography. I know it's big in music as well. And I always thought it fit really well with Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point, because it always felt like you get to, like you say, you start small and then you get to this point where you hit critical mass and things start moving in the right way. So it's great to see you still doing that. And I think a lot of the big Web 2 games, and I'm sure Web 3 games will make the same mistakes. They don't listen to their community enough. They don't engage with their feedback. And you get situations like Blizzard with You Think You Do, when people said they wanted classic World of Warcraft back, and they were mocked, and then it basically saved the brand. So it's good to see that you're so focused on that. One question I have is, Skyweaver is such a high quality game. That's what attracted me very, very quickly, was that I think, as much by contrast as anything else, I'd been coming from these very small indie projects, nothing against indie developers at all, but it just didn't have the level of polish that Skyweaver does. Now, I like TCGs, but I like other genres more. And I want to know if you guys have plans to develop any other games, or if you are developing any other games, or if you can even talk about it, because I don't want to ruin a third thing for you guys.
Yeah, no, we're not planning to develop any more games.
Right.
Our focus is on, we really believe Skyweaver can become the greatest trading card game ever. So we're focused very much on nurturing that and growing, allowing it to live up to its potential. And then as a business, we're very much focused on Sequence and enabling other builders to create their Web3 games and applications. So I believe, Robert, your desires and your appetite for other kinds of games other than TCGs will also be fulfilled by things we're building, because I think Sequence is going to enable this whole next generation of Web3 games, whether it's RPGs or FPS or, MMORPGs, whatever kind of content you're most interested in. I think, Sequence will be powering all of these, but we won't make another game ourselves.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes me sad, but it was a good answer nonetheless. So, Sequence Wallet, some people might not be familiar with that. It's picking up real steam lately. You've got some incredible backers. Obviously, you've just had a funding round. Can you tell us, some people may not be aware of what Sequence Wallet is and what its vision is and what it's doing for Web3. So if you could give us sort of an overview of that, I think it'd be helpful.
Yeah, totally. So as an organization, we've had the thesis for a long time that every internet connected individual will be a Web3 participant, probably within the decade. But what's throttling adoption is user experience, developer experience, and content shortcomings. So to kind of phrase that in a different way, one, there's not enough great content that actually resonates with mainstream audiences. And two, that's because building Web3 applications is very hard, slow, and complex. And then three, even if you do build a great application, you're still left with all of the friction around the wallet and the onboarding experience. So as a company, we approach the content perspective with Skyweaver, right? Trying to make a really fun and awesome game that breaks through. And then in order to enable, to make it easy to build Web3 games and application, we've created this entire Sequence all-in-one developer platform, which also includes the wallet that you're speaking specifically about. And this smart wallet really makes Web3 easy, fun, and secure and accessible for anyone. You don't need to know anything about Web3 or crypto to get started. And you can actually create this secure, non-custodial, multi-chain, multi-key smart contract wallet that grants you access to all of Web3. You can create this account in 2 clicks, and it grants you access to all of Web3, these different games, different kinds of metaverse experiences, socials, eventually more and more applications as they come out, right? Also DeFi protocols, anything. But it's really just trying to make the onboarding experience into Web3 seamless. And then once you're actually in Web3, to have it be super easy to use. So it's more like a companion rather than a research project and, needing to fumble around with seed phrases and figure out what the hell you're doing. It's no, it's just 2 clicks, you're in. It's the same as creating a traditional so enabling like builders, for example, so that their users can create a game account as easily as they could, even if it wasn't Web3, because Sequence just makes it seamless.
Absolutely. I think both me and Rob commented in our articles on Skyreaver in the past that it was a very seamless account creation process. I didn't even know I was creating a wallet. It was there, which, I mean, you can't really get better than that. And, that process has, goes part of the way to solving this, one of the facets of the onboarding issue that we have at the moment. One of the favorite questions we have of all of our guests on the podcast, as we always ask, what do you think is the biggest problem in blockchain gaming right now, and how do you think we go about fixing that?
Yeah, I actually, so I think it's kind of twofold. I think one, just the onboarding experience is problematic for most games. I think we're solving that with Sequence and the wallet. And I think the biggest issue right now is just a lack of great content for all different kinds of users. I think there's kind of a lot of Web3 games that have very, very niche audiences. Typically, like crypto native folks love them, and sometimes they spill over a bit beyond that. Obviously, that's what we're trying to do with Skyweaver, and really like making something that the trading card game community will adore. Obviously, though, this is evolving, right? And it's changing. Like, we're seeing more games come out all the time. And we're now seeing all of these incumbents, like whether we're talking about the big AAA studios or the builders from those companies now leaving to start their own projects, all with Web3 in mind. So I do think that the content is evolving. I think one of the other issues has been like, something hurting the industry is like the scammy projects that are out there. There's just a lot of shit that makes noise that then people outside of the space attribute to Web3, and it's like, we're all here trying to build something awesome that is like actually great content, and it's that part's unfortunate. So I think, the noise against Web3 and NFTs is, I'd say, quieting a bit. But what I think will just make everyone in favor of it is simply having a great Web3 gaming experience. Once that happens, then, you like play a great game and you're like, oh, okay, now I get why these people are talking about why you should be able to own your items. And it's just up until now, most people have not had a Web3 gaming experience, and many people who have had the experience haven't had a great one.
I think you've just put a problem in words. I hadn't thought of it myself, and it's made me look at it slightly differently. I think people who are outside of crypto gaming, I think they're looking at Web3 games as this fundamentally different experience, but that's not what it is, and that's not what it should be. It should be closer to what Skyweaver is, in that I know, again, I can't remember who your lead developer is, the gentleman I met at your Skyweaver booth. Who's your head dev for Skyweaver?
Well, our director of product is Philippe. Our lead game designer is Coulter. We have a junior game designer named Matthew.
I think it was Coulter.
Coulter wasn't at Gamescom, but...
Okay. Well, it was whoever it was. I'm very sorry I forgot your name. I met 12,000 people that weekend. But he was saying that people were coming to the booth to try the game, and all they saw was a TCG. You were in the cosplay bit, and you had some people dressed up as characters, and people were just dropping by, and you had tablets in your booth, and I keep saying you as if you didn't know this. You knew this, but the listeners might not have known this. So there was all these iPads set up, and people were coming in and just jumping into a game of Skyweaver. And several people I know from the developer I spoke to as well, he was saying that people would play it, and then he would mention something about blockchain or NFTs or Web3, and they'd go, oh, that was a Web3 game? Like, I didn't realize. And I think that's what it needs to be. It just needs to be this cog in the background that's doing its work and giving the gamers benefit without it being, it's not this big thing like, oh, I'm playing a Web3 game. I mean, I know that's what we're having to say at the moment because it is such a seismic shift, but for the players, it shouldn't be. For the players, it should just be, oh, cool, I'm taking this with me after I've uninstalled the game. that's kind of cool. Like, at least I have something to show for it, or I can sell it, or I can keep it. And, you know, I'm hoping to pass NFTs down and SFTs to my son in 20 years when he's playing games that are completely different to the ones I'm playing. But, I think it was just a sort of side point, but, I think that's true how you're saying that. And I think, Skyweaver typifies that in a lot of ways. So I have one completely, different question, going in a different direction. So the Sequence developer platform, could you explain exactly what that offers to developers in Web3? Is it an SDK or is it something different?
Yeah. Just to touch on something you said, Robert, I think you might have been speaking with Ari, who's one of the lead developers on Skyweaver. Maybe he was there on the weekend. But anyway,
certainly possible. I'm not putting myself further in this.
All right, gotcha. But I resonate with all your points, and that's what we really set out to do at the beginning. Is like, anyone can use it, and the Web3 aspects in the background, but then the benefits of it are surfaced, and people realize why it's so important over time. And with respect to Sequence, so like Sequence was really born out of all of the pain points that we had to solve in order to build Skyweaver when we started at the end of 2017. And we took all of the pain points, we found solutions and built solutions for them, and then productized those solutions as different products that make up the Sequence developer platform. So as I mentioned earlier, it's this all-in-one platform to make building Web3 games and applications easy. And the different products that make up that platform is one, of course, is the Sequence wallet, right? Because we're speaking about it as an end user application, but it's also very much a developer tool because every Web3 application needs a wallet in order to onboard the users. So there's a Sequence wallet. We also have token and NFT and SFT APIs. So it's really like they're letting you integrate tokens and NFTs and collectibles in your game or application however you want. The metadata, the prices, the artwork. We have an indexer that we've built that's part of this stack. So it allows you to query all of the different token data on chain and then have it automatically display in your application in real time and in sync. And then we also have a relayer, which provides, it really simplifies transactions and allows builders to allow for gasless transactions for their users. Super important, right? If someone's coming to your game for the first time and it's on Polygon, let's say, they probably don't own the Matic token, so they can't transact. But if you enable gasless transactions for them, that problem is solved. The relayer also reduces gas costs for developers through batching and bundling of transactions and reduces their carbon footprint. We also have on-ramps built into the Sequence wallet for users. So there's fiat to crypto on-ramps. You can buy like ETH or Matic or USDC or whatever other token using your credit or debit card. And we'll soon be enabling smart ramps, which is something we built with Wire. And smart ramps allow you to buy an NFT, an SFT, or some other Web3 collectible directly with credit or debit. So you don't actually need to convert to crypto in the first place. Sequence as a platform also has a node gateway. So we aggregate the world's best node providers, including Infura and Alchemy and QuickNode and some of our own internally managed nodes. And we auto switch between them in case one of them fails, but it's ultimately to ensure that the applications have 99.9% uptime and that the data is always in sync and available for the users. We also have a marketplace protocol that we're building. So I mentioned Nifty Swap earlier, right? And the Nifty Swap protocol powers the Skyweaver market. And so right now folks can use the Nifty Swap protocol and build their own marketplace front end on top of it. And we'll soon be making an SDK for that so that it's just even easier for devs to build their own marketplace. And then we also have a Unity SDK for anyone building a game powered by the Unity engine. We have an Unreal Engine SDK, and we have a mobile SDK.
That's the most complete answer I could have imagined to that question. I can't think of a single thing missing from that stack. So that's that's impressive. And I think John and I have talked about this a lot, but the onboarding players and gamers and users is the problem that a lot of people are focusing on. But onboarding developers is arguably the bigger problem, because if no one's building, as you said, if no one's building the content, the good content, then, you know, if you don't build it, no one will come. So, I think that's important. You mentioned, I promise I'm not trying to get you in trouble. You mentioned the funding round. Is that, do you envision the funds to help you finish this vision or flesh it out more, or do you have any sort of long-term goals that you can share? Again, not trying to get in trouble.
Yeah. Oh, totally, man. I can tell you all of the reasons for the funding and all the things we'll do with it, for sure. So yeah, it's really to expand. I mean, obviously grow Skyweaver as a game, like we talked about. And then it's really to expand the sequence ecosystem, to bring more builders onto the platform, largely through marketing, community, partnerships, and business development, and to build like better support around sequence, like for builders on the platform. In addition to like enhancing our documentation, like we'll soon have more documentation coming out, and enhancing the tools, right? Like we want to make them as easy to use and as seamless as possible. Some of them are in different states than others. Like they're all usable, you know, but like they'll keep getting better and they'll keep getting more intuitive. And because, you know, right now they're built for Web3 natives and people coming from Web 2 and entering Web 3, right? And, you know, over time, they're going to get even smoother and easier for like just more and more people to use them. So it's always going to be evolving, and surely we're going to learn like something that some of our builders say like, hey, we really need this and there's no solution out there. So maybe we'll have to like build that for them.
Sounds good. Okay. So I know John wanted to ask you this, but I'm going to steal his question. We are recording this on the 13th of September, our time, which means we are just a few days away from the fabled merge. Do you have any thoughts on it? Do you think it's going to have any impact on blockchain, on NFTs, or do you think it's going to perhaps be a little more lackluster than that in terms of impact?
Well, I think it's an incredible achievement and something that's been talked about for 6 years, maybe. I don't know. I'm trying to remember, like, I first met Vitalik before Ethereum was even live, and I feel like proof of stake was spoken about, like, even before Ethereum was actually in existence. So, not that it was ever called the merge back then, but, like, this movement towards proof of stake. So, it's been this, like, long journey. And yeah, it's massive, right? Because it's I think one of the biggest things is gonna so drastically reduce the carbon footprint and like the energy that's required to secure the network and to run the Ethereum ecosystem. And I think that's tremendously advantageous for the gaming industry, because it means like now you can do it in an environmentally friendly way, especially because so many people were super upset a few months ago, you know, in a combination of some legitimate reasons and a combination of some sensationalism. But in any case, like shifting to proof of stake and with the merge, the Ethereum ecosystem is going to be like 99.95% more energy efficient. Yeah. So that is phenomenal. And it actually doesn't even stop there. Like it's going to keep getting more efficient. And this enables like all of the other EVM chains as well, like makes them even better. So like, you know, Polygon was already committed to being carbon negative. This just makes it a little bit easier, significantly easier, right? Binance Smart Chain, Optimism, Arbitrum, Avalanche, like all of these different EVM compatible networks are now more environmentally friendly, which I think it's an amazing thing for the industry. And I also think that players can be happier about that, right? Like as gamers, yeah, I think you can feel even better about what's happening.
Yeah, it definitely overcomes the tabloid style headlines of you know the damage it's doing. John and I did an episode on the merge last week or the week before. I can't remember. Time moves very, very quickly in crypto, and we discussed that that really was the go-to criticism of crypto. A fair criticism, by the way. It used an unconscionable amount of energy, and with that removed, I mean, you've still got the gas fees, but with that removed, it does allow for a lot of growth in the sector and a lot less resistance, I think. So yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, and I think gas fees are largely solved by layer 2s and side chains and those other networks that I'm mentioning, right? And then just yeah,
I think you one thing that the whole debate around the environmental impact of NFTs does is not just amongst Web3 natives, let's call them, but against the proponents of Web3 and supporters of it, and also the people that let's say have a more negative take on it because of things like environmental impact. I think both kind of the discourse, both intra and inter those communities, can create kind of we're in the middle of a bear market at the moment, and if you head to crypto Twitter, let's say, there's a lot of a lot of tribalism, a lot of projects taking shots at one another, people saying, hey, this blockchain's best, no, this blockchain's best, and it's becoming quite an entrenched space, let's call it. When I interviewed you on NFT Insider, I think it was about 6 months ago now, Michael, you kind of made this point of preaching love and play and, this kind of sense of togetherness. So I guess my question is, if you could kind of place thought in everyone's minds in the space, what would that thought be to try and get everyone to just, I don't know, just be nice, just be nice and work closely together.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I sign all my emails with love at the end because I want to just acknowledge and instill a bit of that in every interaction, and to realize, because I believe that the fabric of existence is love, and to just acknowledge that reality. To be honest, I think most people building the space are building from love, and I think that love sometimes turns into passion and then combativeness, and but it's just always reminding people that, especially in Web3, I think we're all, well, not everyone, but I think a lot of people are trying to build towards this better future. And so, yeah, I don't know what to say other than just live with love, remember that, also be open to other ideas. And I think openness is a really important part of it. We are building with open standards, a lot of open source technology. These systems are interoperable and permissionless. So it's by their very nature, they are intended to be open. And I think coming with that is a prerequisite for open-mindedness as well, because there are going to be different ideas that, personally, I love hearing a new idea that potentially even negates a previous held belief I had, because now it's sweet, I learned something new and I can evolve past my previously flawed way of thinking, and then in the future it's going to evolve again. So yeah, it's interesting. Tribalism has some certain benefits to it because it gets people really excited and committed to a vision and a mission, and it helps generate awareness for it. Because if you didn't have people so evangelical about certain things, then a lot of people on the periphery would never hear about those projects in the first place. So there is a benefit to it as well. And yeah, I mean it's also why and I don't say this to the detriment of other ecosystems, but it's part of the reason I really love the Ethereum and EVM ecosystem, is because this underlying Ethereum virtual machine architecture can be leveraged by so many different networks, and is being leveraged by so many different networks, and then creating this more holistic ecosystem. And that's what we've really focused on, right? With Horizon, is to enable that whole ecosystem so that whether you're a builder or a user, you can access all of these different networks and they can feel like one cohesive ecosystem, so that you as an individual don't even really need to worry about which network am I on. It's just more seamless. So I know I've kind of went in a roundabout way, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's all love, man.
What a lovely ending ending to that. So I've got a question on interoperability. Is that something that is, I mean, obviously the sequence wallet is built with that in mind. Is that something you think is important to Web3 gaming in general? I'm not going to try and get you to define the metaverse because that would be unfair. But a lot of people, when they talk about the metaverse, there's always the sort of the two sides of the coin. There's interoperability versus the walled garden, and people are very anti a walled garden. But you could argue, like you did there, that you could say that the chains that are layer 2s that are building on Ethereum on the EVM, they are part of a very wide walled garden, and perhaps holistic interoperability with basically a complete inclusion of any chain that gets any sort of momentum behind it wouldn't be desirable. What do you think? Do you think that interoperability is the goal, or do we need to be a bit more controlled?
I definitely think interoperability. Well, I think I think interoperability is essential, and I think open standards are essential. Now, I guess, are you talking about, like, I don't know, some potentially nefarious network trying to build with the protocol, or?
No, not necessarily. Okay. No.
Yeah. So
I hope they fail.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, it's an interesting thing, right? Like, most of the major networks that aren't EVM compatible talk about building towards EVM compatibility so that they can be interoperable. And at the very least, they have bridges, albeit not entirely secure yet in many scenarios, but over time becoming increasingly secure. So I think there's still like a degree of interoperability, perhaps not as seamless. And, it's a lot to ask a gamer, like, hey, go friggin' bridge from this, over to that.
Yeah.
Unless, like, we've actually enabled it in sequence where you can just bridge directly in your wallet. So, like, all that would happen is, like, oh, you have this asset on Polygon, and, like, just press bridge and you can bridge it over to Avalanche, and then the tag aside it from your experience, it's just like, oh, now it's on Avalanche, right? And, like, there's a small fee associated with that. But yeah, I mean, I think open standards are essential, and that's what enables interoperability, right? And, like, that's like the reason why decentralized ownership and, like, the true ownership of digital assets matters is because, or is enabled, is because it's built atop of this neutral infrastructure, right? Where it's not controlled by, like, any individual entity. It's decentralized, it's distributed. The power of it is decentralized and distributed. So I think, yeah, so why it matters, right, is, like, if it's built on top of this neutral infrastructure, then, like, the game item that you have can be ownable and can be usable independent of the application or even potentially the network that you're currently engaging with. If it's not interoperable, then we're basically just talking about a centralized ecosystem, the same way that, traditional video games exist. And that's, like, the whole thing that we're wanting to evolve beyond.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Speaking of kind of the traditional, let's say the titans of traditional gaming moving into the space, I mean, there was various rumbles and hearsay at Gamescom of, AAA companies either, actively working on their own projects or partnering with Web3 companies to, facilitate their entry into the space. What's your thoughts on those, or on the prospects, let's say, of, let's say the giants of the traditional gaming space, whether that's PC, console, mobile, etc., moving into Web3 and adopting, whether that be, let's just call it blockchain games in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely happening. Like, we speak with a lot of the big AAA gaming studios, and all of them are building their Web3 strategies, or some have had them in place for, like, 4 years, 5 years.
Wow.
And they, a lot of it R&D, and just like trying to understand the space. And now we're in very active conversations, and, some of it will be disclosed in our Series A announcement, like one of the major gaming studios that we're working with. And then there are other, like, really large, like some of the biggest IPs that we're speaking with. And it's hard for me to say for sure, like, are they going to, like, they are doing it. When it will hit market, that's a bit harder for me to predict. Like, I don't know if it's 2 years away, or if it's actually like 5 years away, or if it's actually like 6 months, because I think if you're if you have really big, amazing IP out there as a AAA gaming studio right now, it's tough to risk what can be perceived as such a new frontier, or perceived as a risky frontier, right? If you have this like incredible ecosystem. And it's funny because a lot of that is even more perception than it is reality, because like, you know, you could have an amazing IP and then suddenly everyone actually owns their game items. It's not like that big of a divergence from what you have. It's actually just like a betterment of the ecosystem. However, of course, you have to think about, well, how does that affect the economy and your ability to monetize? But I have lots of thoughts on that as well, and how like Web3 gaming, and I'm sure you guys too, about how it actually makes monetization better and actually promotes healthier economies and healthier ecosystems, where you can actually like monetize activity in the market and activity in the game rather than just like needing to kind of extract value by, in other ways.
Yeah, I don't want to out any developers, but I spoke to a AAA game developer and publisher at Gamescom, and they have been working on some Web3 stuff for what must have been a couple of years, given how long they were along the road. And the pain point that they were bringing up to me was perception, was how they present this work to their fan base without it becoming alienating, without it getting the backlash that they've seen other games get. I mean, a lot of smaller studios have done U-turns visible from space the second they've announced something. So these big studios, they can't afford to take that sort of hit. I think it's interesting. I think perception is really key, but hopefully with changes like the merge and some of the real tangible downsides of crypto being reduced, then perhaps they'll become less of a concern over time, which just seems natural, I guess.
Yeah, and I think even too, like, nomenclature has an impact, because NFTs, they got a tough, I mean, in many ways, like, it was, as you guys know, it was like the most exciting time when everyone was talking about NFTs for like being in the Web3 space for a long time, right? It's like, wow, like everyone's paying attention to Web3 and NFTs finally. And then there was the contrast to that where there's like, yeah, so many people hate NFTs because of the environmental concerns that people addressed. But I think like, you know, and this is a subtle shift which might not have as big of an impact, but even like SFTs, right? Where it's like, okay, this is a different kind of game item. It's kind of like just enabling this slightly different narrative that's connected, but it's like, oh, maybe this is actually like a new way forward. And by the way, like SFTs and NFTs will have like the same environmental impact, but it's just like kind of allowing for a page to be turned and like saying like, oh, but check out these things. And now that the merge has happened, it's like, oh, it is environmentally friendly. So you're kind of starting from a point that never had all of like the baggage behind it. And increasingly more and more things will come out. Like it might even be that we just talk about like tradable items or Web3 collectibles or something like that, right? That isn't even associated with like the FT association at all.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. So long live NFTs, long live SFTs, by the sounds of things. Mindful of time, I know we're approaching an hour here, so is there anything else you'd like to say to the listeners? Any places they should follow, any things they should go and check out?
Yeah, I would say like go to horizon.io, go to skyweaver.net if you want to play a fun game, especially if you like trading card games. If you're a builder, go to sequence.xyz/developers, and niftyswap.io we're soft launching it quite soon, and then it'll be in a more like official launch later this fall. So if you want to, trade or provide liquidity for some SFTs, and then you can earn fees for doing that as well.
Fantastic, Michael. Thank you very much for your time. This has been a joy. It's been great to get your thoughts, not just on what Horizon's doing, but the wider space as well. So this has been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys very much, and thank you to everyone listening.
All right. There we go, episode 38 in the books, and Michael's a fantastic guest. I think it was great to hear his hear his thoughts not just on what Horizon are doing and, the sequence development platform and the wallet and, of course, Skyweaver the game, but just his thoughts on general in Web3, and great to hear him preaching love and play in there as well, I think. I mean, in all seriousness, in this bear market situation we're in, it can feel like the NFT space is an overtly negative one, and it's great to bring someone on who is preaches positivity in a healthy way, and it was great to experience that with him.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting guy, very knowledgeable about the space, and not to diminish him at all, but he's a beautiful man. I was thinking that halfway through the pod, when he was talking, I was thinking, you look like Ben Affleck with L'Oreal hair. Like it's just, you're a beautiful man, Michael. If you made it this far, if you didn't turn off as soon as we finished the interview, you should know that. But yeah, just such an interesting guy, and so knowledgeable about the space and what they're building. Their ecosystem is seriously impressive. Like having one of the strongest games, having a wallet that is as easy to use. I saw a tweet from them earlier, actually, where he kept saying just 2 clicks, and they made a joke about that on their Twitter. They're like, we can't get it down to 1 click, but 2 clicks, which sounds fair enough. But yeah, it's just I can't speak to the SDK or the developer tools, but the other sides of it's just so well polished, and I'm glad they've got funding, and hopefully it's a big number, because I think they would help push the space forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've got, I'd say, one of the leading, or what I would call one of the leading blockchain games, especially in like a trading card genre. One of the best onboarding solutions. They're on what I would consider to be the leading chain for blockchain gaming. Everything's pointing in the right direction for Horizon, and I am very excited to continue seeing them develop and seeing where they go next.
Yeah, and I mean, if as you said, they're talking to AAA studios, so they could end up being a very important cog as the wheel goes forward.
Absolutely, completely agree. Well, there we go. Episode 38. Rob, where can we find you?
You look at the camera. You can find Token Gamer on Twitter at Token Gamer News, and you can find us at tokengamer.io, which is daily blockchain gaming content. We stream Tuesdays and Thursdays at, I think, 9 p.m. some time zone. I don't know, figure it out. You'll find out. Push the bell icon on the Twitch stream, and then you'll get an email. There you go. I turned a negative into a positive there. And that's twitch.tv/Token Gamer. We've then got the app, which is currently the Wax Companion app on iOS and Android, just called Token Gamer, where you can see your NFTs. And there's a drops calendar, which is now being managed. Thank you, Mert, for taking over that role. We were failing at it. We hopefully will start making the app multi-chain, get more NFTs in there and more goodness. I think that's everything I can think of. John, where can we find you?
You can find the latest NFT news at nftinsider.io. We wrote a really cool interview on a project called Lonely Pop in the past week. They are ETH based, so likely unfamiliar to many of you watching, but if you've never heard about the project before, definitely dive in and give it a look. I think it was a really great interview with a really great team. So, and of course, we've continued highlighting drops, as we always do, talking about developments in the space. And we've got another stellar interview with an ETH-based project coming out this week, so look forward to that. For social media, it's at NFTinsider_IO on both Twitter and Instagram, for giveaways, drop calendar tweets, retweeting cool stuff we find in the space, all that good stuff. Our newsletter, which is going very well. I think we're 3 weeks in now. That's nftinsider.io/newsletter. Exclusive interviews, giveaways. This week's one is Senor Lupe, and for anyone who's ever spoken to him for 10 seconds, you'll know what his written style is like, and we like to enshrine that, so you can look forward to that by signing up. For me personally, it's at Hydropowered, HYDROPWRD, on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Clubhouse, and various other platforms. Twitter is the best one for daily tweets on everything happening in space. Usually trying to not make people argue and be mad at other people for various things, but I guess that depends
Well,
on
you're
what
not
I'm
very
doing.
good at that then.
Hey, I like to facilitate discussion, but I don't like that to be, heated discussion. It should be friendly debate,
Sure.
But yeah, that's the best place to find me. And if you spotted that in my intro I wasn't wearing glasses, and then when the podcast started I was wearing glasses, well done to you. DM me and I'll send. I don't know what I'll send you, but I'll send you something.
That's a very open DM. Anyone who noticed you didn't have something over 30% of your face and then did is getting an NFT. Wow.
But I haven't even said what they, or given any indication as to what they need
An
to
emoji.
send to me. So it could be one of those Discord, spam bots that's like, hey, click on this link to get 20 ETH. And I'll just reply to them saying, oh, have you checked out the Mint One podcast? Hey, it gets views.
That it does.
But hey, there we go. Episode 38 of the pod.
You've
Thank
had
you very
14 hours of straight meetings, and I can feel your. So in case you guys didn't know, because we said this off air, John has had meetings since 7 a.m. It's currently 10:45 in the evening. You've had a big day.
It's been a long day. Thankfully, I've only got 2 meetings tomorrow. So
No, easy. I thought you were going to say you've only got 2 meetings left.
Yeah, I'll be awake until 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But no, hopefully a more relaxed end to the week, shall we say. But there we go, episode 38 in the books. Follow us on Twitter at Mint1Pod, like and subscribe on YouTube, 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, and any other things that I've missed off. Thank you very much for tuning in, guys, and we hope that you tune in again next week.